Hello and welcome. This is episode 9 of podcast Engineer-to-Manager. My name is Alex Maestrenko. I'm podcaster and advisor to their CDTO and Kyiv City Council here in Ukraine. In this podcast, we are diving into the essence of engineering management. We explore what engineering management is and what are the challenges and opportunities. For this journey, I will invite experienced engineering managers from different parts of the world. Today's guest is Anna Kurylo. Hello, Anna. How are you?
Hi, nice to see you, Alex. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great. Great to have you here. So now you're software engineering manager at Red Hat.
Yes.
And you have worked at Red Hat, right?
Yes.
For the last 5 years and going from engineer to manager.
Yes, that's correct.
That would be nice to understand how you did it and what were the hard and easy parts of that transition. As you described on your LinkedIn page, before joining Red Hat, you gained some outsourcing experience here in Ukraine. And recently you also started mentoring software engineers through a platform Mentor Cruise to help them achieving their career goals.
Yes, that's correct.
Very nice, very solid experience. Looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, thank you.
Would you like to add anything? Is it correct?
Yeah, I think you covered everything pretty well, to be honest. I'm not sure if I can add something else. So yeah, I think you covered everything pretty well. So yeah, you are correct that I first worked in an outsourcing. Actually, it was an outstaffing company in Ukraine. At the time, me and my partner basically thought about moving somewhere to Europe to see basically how it is to live abroad. So he found a job at Red Hat first. He also passed my resume to the recruiter, and there was an opportunity in my current team. So that's how I got there as a software engineer. So I was the third person to join the team as a software engineer. We were a small team, and as years went by, we kind of started growing. And at some point, my manager had, I think, over 20 direct reports, something like that. And as you can imagine, for an engineering manager, that's too much to handle for, it's even too many one-to-ones to put on the calendar. So yeah, I basically spoke to my manager and I said, look, if you'll be looking to, create some team leads or basically build a structure under you, I'm happy to step in as a lead and then maybe eventually as a manager, because that's something that I'm interested in. And yeah, I was lucky enough to be chosen. So first I became a team lead. I worked in this position for about half a year. I went through some internal managerial training, and then I became first an associate manager and now a software engineering manager.
Nice. And you're at Red Hat for the last 5 years. Did the company change, or did your perception of the company change? Because we all change as we live our lives.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think when I first started, I had no idea what it's like to work for an enterprise and even to work on basically working on a product overall. Because when you are working, my whole previous experience was with outsourcing companies and outstaffing companies, where you don't really, you have your tasks, but you don't really bother as much with the outcomes of what you have delivered, whether it's the impact of these
you
things.
may not need to bother. You may bother, but you may not need to bother.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would say in my case, I didn't, we kind of tried to care about it, but we didn't have much visibility back in my previous teams. And here I got to realize that offering ideas and coming up with things and how they turn out is basically all part of the software engineering process. It's not just about getting a task, getting it done, shipping it and moving on to something, but it's much more than that. So yeah, I guess that's something that has changed significantly. And in terms of the company itself, I think we have a really great culture. We are very open in terms of communication and giving feedback. That's something that I've appreciated from the start. There's definitely a huge amount of opportunities to get involved in different communities. And obviously things do change because some people come, some people leave, and parts of the
Well, the
culture
market
also.
changes, right? With
Yeah.
all basically you joined before COVID, as far as I understand, and then
Yes.
the COVID with the remote work and different layoffs and growing during the COVID times and then layoffs in the recent year. Did you experience that as well in your company?
Yeah, definitely. We just had a round of layoffs, which was, I think, the announcement was about 4% of the of the workforce that are being reduced. Luckily, my team was not affected, but yeah, honestly, like we don't know what's going to happen then, but like we are trying to adjust, I would say.
No.
In terms of COVID, I don't think that affected my team as much because I am part of a distributed team and we were distributed from the beginning, honestly.
Mhm.
So when I joined, I was the only person in the Czech Republic. Now there's two people in the Czech Republic, me and an intern that we have. But everyone else pretty much is all like everyone is in different countries, and yeah, I'm not even sure if we have any other location where we have two people in the same country, to be honest.
Oh, wow,
Yeah.
that's quite a distribution around the globe.
Yeah,
How
for
many
sure.
time zones do you cover within your team?
Oh, that's a good question. Let me count. So definitely at least four, but I think if we count everyone, it's probably going to be like 7 or 8, something like that.
Whoa. So kind of somewhere in India and then in the US, this would make this
Yes. Yeah.
time difference.
Yeah. We have the United States. We have Brazil. We have what do we have? Well, obviously we have people in Europe, so that's pretty much like all one time zone. We used to have people in Ireland, but the person relocated, so now they're in the same. Basically now they're in the EMEA time zone. We have
Mhm.
India. We have Singapore. Um, and some
Well,
more, but
Singapore
yeah.
and East Coast already makes 12 hours, I would say. So it's
Yes.
even
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
Wow. That's quite a big team. Well, before we go in your current position and your details, I cannot stop myself from asking: do you have a hat, a red hat?
Yes, I do. I wish I
Wow.
had it somewhere near. I do not, but I can show you the fun hat that we have. So, like, not everyone has it. It's kind of like a retro merch, I would say.
Oh.
So, just give me a second. All right, so I have this sailor's hat.
Oh.
So it's an internal joke on our team. So basically, when my manager joined, I'll take it off in a second, but essentially, when my manager joined, the team gave her this hat, and they told her that like she's supposed to, like everyone is supposed to wear this hat every time they join a daily stand up. And she did it for about a month until one person that was on PTO joined, like came back from PTO, and the person wasn't wearing a hat, and then they just told her, like it's an internal joke that we have.
All
So
right.
yeah, basically after that, everyone who joined the team up until we still had these hats got one. So yeah.
Nice. So it's
So
a captain's hat
yes,
or a
no, it's
manager's
like,
hat.
yeah, we can call it that. Yes.
Nice. So as a manager, what are you doing? What is your daily routine? What is your daily tasks? What are the
Yeah,
tasks?
that's a good question. So I kind of like try to separate my role into three main parts. So that's people, roadmap, and I call it also representation. So in terms of people management, I think it's the usual things, making sure that my reports have what they need to be successful, managing performance and development, and also bringing right opportunities to people. In terms of the roadmap, that's something that I picked up, I think, in the last 6 months. That was not part of the role initially, but now my scope is kind of growing. So I am working with several product managers that are responsible for different parts of our product portfolio. And each of them used to have a separate, like their separate roadmap, and occasionally it so happened that there was more items on their roadmaps than we could deliver within particular time frame. So I took it upon myself to get them all to like into alignment, and we also have some goals that are obviously not related to product, like for example some goals regarding addressing technical debt or improving our architecture. So balancing all of these things and figuring out what are the most impactful changes that we can bring to the product, and working on that together with the product managers and our architects has been something that I've been doing in the last half a year probably. All right.
And the third one?
Yeah, the third one, representation. I basically consider myself to be a representative for the team. So we have basically several departments that we are working with, and each of those might have like their own projects or something that they need from us. So that's where I act sort of as a shield from my engineers being pulled into these discussions initially. And basically I come in as kind of like the first step to validate that something that that the other teams are looking for is something that we can deliver. I then work with the product managers to figure out where this fits in our roadmap. And after that, initially, like at some point, eventually, if we decide to work on that, that's where the engineers get involved.
Got it. So basically you're kind of connect, you said shielding, or I would also use the word connect their team with external teams and the requirements that are coming towards your team.
Yes, that's correct.
You know the concept of the first team, right? Do you know the concept of the first team?
First team?
Yeah.
I don't think so. What is that?
So this is the team with which you work, and lots of people are saying like, well, as a manager, I work with their team that reports to me, kind of. But the first team is a team of your peers. So basically, as you're working with engineering managers from other teams, this is your first team. And if you focus on your team completely, then you might lose the connection with your peers and lose the context, lose their information that is flowing and so on and so forth. Therefore, the first team is a team of your peers because you kind of set in on your level, and then the team that reports to you is basically a second team that with that you work. Therefore, I was about to ask like, what is your first team in this position? Because what I hear you're referring to your own team mostly, and then you're referring to team of your peers. So I'm trying to understand how you focus on which team more and which direction out of these three pillars that you are working on in your daily work.
Makes sense. Yeah. Well, lately I have, we're going to get to the topic of succession later in the recording, but basically lately I have started to build structure basically on my team, like on my second team, as you call it, of essentially like I have two team leads now that are taking over, I would say, a lot of people management responsibilities. So I'm doing that lately less. And I think I would say around like 60% of my day-to-day work goes into the roadmap and communication, basically like with the first team, I would say.
Okay. Well, nice. So, and as you're building up their team with several team leads, do you have skip level already, kind of through their team leads to their engineers?
Yes. Yeah, I do.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. And how often do you have one-to-ones or skip level one-to-ones?
It depends on the person. Some people require some people would need more attention from me and like they ask for meetings more often. Some people are basically happy with just being in touch with their team lead. So on average, I would say that with the majority of people, it's once a month. And with some people, it might be once every couple of weeks or basically ad hoc when they need it.
Is it once a month? Is it enough for people to have once a month or a connection with you as a manager?
They have one-to-ones with their team leads. So basically, the majority, like they have weekly one-to-ones with their team leads. So the majority of issues can be resolved within these one-to-ones, or I'm always available on the chat, and they can reach out directly if there is something that can be resolved by a team lead.
Interesting, because the combination of the things that you are doing, so it's kind of going in the direction of the senior engineering manager with having teams under you, but you also care a lot and work a lot with a platform and roadmap platform and connectivity with other teams. What tools are you using for your EM tasks? Because taking into account all the things together requires some tools. It's like something specific for Red Hat or just boring essential stuff?
That's a good question. So I think it's like there's not going to be a unified answer for all of Red Hat. So I can just talk about what I'm using myself. So I would say that my work is, and like my list of tools is evolving the more I kind of like get to try different things and like as my tasks evolve as well. But definitely it's a whole lot of lists. I am very pedantic that way, that I'm trying to make sure that I don't forget anything. So it's definitely like a whole lot of lists. Lately I realized that just using a notes app on my iPhone or Mac is the best option for that. Then obviously the standard G Suite stuff, so like mail, Google Docs for one-to-ones, etc. Spreadsheets very rarely. In terms of the work that my team is doing and where I collaborate with everyone else, obviously project management is going to be something like Jira. And we also use Miro. It's basically like a whiteboarding tool a lot for basically thinking through things architecture wise, or just keeping the agenda of meetings and things like that.
Nice, nice, nice. Well, it's good to, as you said about pedantic and list. I said, oh well, it's good that I've sent you the list of before the podcast, so you can also have another list. Sorry for that.
No, I appreciate it anyways. Like it's good to be prepared.
Good. So, do you like your current position?
Yeah, I do. Honestly, I wanted to be an engineering manager. Probably, like I realized that I'm not as good of an engineer as I initially thought I am going to be. I mean, I do still know my stuff, obviously, but still, I don't think that I would be happy just being an individual contributor. There's definitely a value in that, but I realized pretty early in my career that like being an IC is cool, but I think that being able to like help other people and having this like bird's eye view of the whole product and like basically being able to shape its direction in a sense has been something that was more interesting for me. So yeah, I would say that I'm happy where I am right now.
You mentioned they're helping other people, and I hear this a lot when I talk with people about essential skills for EM, that it's willingness to help other people. Well, what would be then there as well? Top three essential skills for you as EM, for EM to have?
Good question. So I was thinking about it before the call, and I realized there's actually like quite more than three that I would like to list. But if I were to choose just the top three, I would say that the skills that I was lacking initially, and I was very happy that I obtained later on, were giving and receiving feedback. So, and also like not being shy to do that, because that's actually one of the things that one of my early career, like manager career mistakes, was not giving feedback on time. Also being able to catch things when they are just starting to go wrong. So basically like, and also not being shy to go and try and figure out what's going on. I don't know if it's like
kind of going the details or talking to people, or what do you mean by that?
Yeah, I would say so, probably. So I think many times in my early manager days, I would say that I was seeing that somebody like is starting to get stuck, or maybe like there's some miscommunication somewhere happening, and I was just like, I'm gonna let people like handle that on themselves. And sometimes it kind of got resolved by itself, but sometimes things got sideways, and it would have been much easier to talk things through when I first noticed the problem than it was to resolve them later on. Yeah. And I think the third one is probably I'm not sure if it's delegation necessarily, but basically like I would say like meaningful delegation. So accounting delegation of projects or opportunities, accounting for person's professional interests. I think that's something that has been very, I don't know if it's like an early manager skill or if it's kind of like something that you gain later on in your career, but definitely that's something that I found to be helpful to kind of keep growing people on the team. So like to help them to support them in their careers, and basically bringing them the right opportunities.
And well, as a manager, you have managerial tasks and you have engineering team that works on non-managerial tasks.
Yeah.
What would you delegate? Could Could it be some, I don't know, technical tasks that you're not supposed to do, or what?
I mean, if I'm not supposed to do a task, I can't really delegate it, right? It's not mine. It's not mine to take. But yeah, I think the majority of the things that I have delegated in the past and like I'm trying to delegate now are also like related to this representation in a sense. So I am basically, I might be part of the initial conversation with someone, but then I'm going to let the person on the team essentially represent the whole essentially represent the whole team and basically like decide how we're going to approach something, collect the requirements, also build connections with everyone, like with the surrounding departments, because that also helps them in their future career.
So kind of letting the team work on their own when it's time, right? So not having their complete control, and then basically, giving people space to breathe and their making their work. Yeah, nice. You mentioned you had several more. I'm just curious, what else do you have? Because you obviously thought it through, and as this 3 we just named, what would be the one that you decided to leave for the 4th place?
Honestly, like I don't really remember at this point. I kind of wrote down just the top 3.
Okay.
Yeah. I would say, honestly, I can't really like even remember at this point what else I was going to say. Sorry about that.
All right. No worries. I was just curious as you mentioned. Okay, well, sounds interesting. So basically, you are kind of having the team, and then you were driving the team and giving them space to work. And you mentioned you had several things that you had to learn early in your career when you were just making first baby steps in the management. Can you think of a mistake that you made in the early career, or when you were already kind of experienced or a seasoned manager? What was that?
Okay, so the first mistake I think that I've made was initially when I first became a team lead and then an engineering manager, for some time, I assumed that I'm going to be the smartest person in the room when I'm not supposed to be. And that honestly, looking back at that, it sucked. Honestly, it was not good, coming into the meeting and trying to when you become an engineering manager, when you basically join a leadership position, even though technically you're just supporting the team, there's still a sense of, people can't really say, or it's going to take people a lot more effort to say no to you, when you're proposing something that's incorrect. And I didn't realize that there's a new power dynamic apparently now, and I was like, yeah, let's do this and that, and the solution sucked sometimes they were okay, sometimes they were bad, and basically I was making people uncomfortable by the fact that I was trying to solution something when I'm not really supposed to. It's not my place to do that anymore.
No. Yeah. It happened actually to me today. I was talking to their team of contractors with which I work, and basically they were stuck with one problem. And I said, look, guys, it looks like the problem might be around this space, and try to think in that direction and kind of do these steps. However, I gathered kind of the whole team to make sure that they take the decision. And I said, I don't know, it works, it doesn't work, I'm not responsible. You are providing the service to me, right? So basically, I'm just trying to facilitate their line of thought, facilitate their thinking, their problem solving, but not to provide a complete solution. Because, as a manager, I'm responsible for the delivery, but not the implementation that I cannot handle myself. For that, I have the team.
Yep, exactly.
So that is basically it. Yeah, so it happens to everyone, as you see, and I guess you are still connected with your engineering past, and kind of it's a challenging problem that I would like to solve myself, and I would like to get my hands dirty, still try out their solution, and then you realize that you have a bunch of tasks, and I could also imagine that at that point in time you also had some other tasks just piling up because you were diving into helping the team
Yes.
with their.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, honestly, like the first half a year was just like learning how to take care of people meaningfully. So like not just coming to one to one and saying, "Hey, so how are things going?" and just like letting the person talk, but also like making sure that this time is helpful for the person and it's also like helpful to me. Basically, yeah, just like learning all of those ropes has been maybe like even not the first half a year, but like probably the first year of me being an engineering manager.
Did you work with her, well, as a people manager before, or did you had that experience, or it was
No, it was the first time. So yeah, at the time, I actually basically when I became a team lead, we just hired. I don't remember, like 3 or 4 new people. So it was basically both onboarding them and also like being their people manager at the same time. So it was kind of like a mixture of both technical and people leadership. So that was challenging, but yeah, I think acknowledging the fact that all of these people are still here, I think I've done hopefully a pretty good job.
Nice, great, really nice. If they continue and they appreciate you as a manager, that's really nice. And what has been, well, really helpful to you in your early days? Like a book or article, an approach, an idea that you got from somebody, a mentorship from your a manager or something else?
I think two things. So one, so I already told you about the lists, right? So I love my lists and I will never like stop using them. So a book, like there was a book that is essentially a list of things that you are supposed to do as an engineering manager who's just getting started. Let me see. I don't remember the name of it fully, so just let me open. I still have it in here. It's the Become an Effective Software Engineering Manager by Dr. James Stanier. So
Okay.
yeah, so it's essentially like this book. It's also available like as a set of blog posts on his blog, and yeah, it basically covers like what you're supposed to do like when you're just getting started, and like how to set up your one-to-ones, like what to pay attention to, things like that. So it was very helpful in that way because all of the managerial training, and by the way, like everyone at Red Hat goes through managerial training when they either join as a manager or get promoted to a manager. Most of that managerial training was kind of like principles and like here's how you give feedback, here's how you handle heated conversations, things like that. But it was not talking about what your day to day is going to look like. And I was like, just tell me what to do, just tell me what I'm supposed to be doing, because like I want to be awesome in this and I don't know, I have no idea what I'm doing because it's a different set of skills. So yeah, that book has been super helpful. The managerial training have also been helpful, especially like there's a training called Crucial Conversations. It's available not just to like Red Hat. It's basically like a training that is provided by another company. And yeah, it kind of like teaches you the right way to communicate things when things are going sideways, to not make someone mad or angry, but to get to the solution in the end. So that was something like there is also a book that has the same name, Crucial Conversations, and I highly recommend it.
Okay, we'll put their book here somewhere in the description so that dear listeners can check it out and read it. As you're saying about lists, I was thinking about their awesome list on GitHub, because there is an awesome list for engineering managers on GitHub as well. And I recently saw another collection of posts and books and articles and podcasts about engineering managers. Also, highly recommend it. We'll put the link somewhere here. I don't know, somewhere here in the video.
Good. Cool.
Yeah,
one more I just remembered that I wanted to mention. So website leaddev.com. So they have they have events, and I was supposed to attend in 2020, but then COVID hit. Really, honestly, like really enjoyed their content in the beginning. There were, for example, like there was a video I saw from I think 2018 or something like that, about how salaries work. And while, like different companies like will have different policies, like it was very interesting for me to learn, for example, that as a new manager, because I was like, okay, next time the salary adjustment cycle comes, what do I do? Like, how do I decide on things? And it's been super helpful, honestly. And the fact that most of the talks are short enough for my limited attention span, that was also helpful.
Got it. Yeah, that's indeed a very great community. They also have a Slack channel, a Slack group where you can join. Unfortunately, these days they are not as active as they used to be for some reason, but their website itself gets lots of traction and lots of new articles. So indeed, that's a really good resource. Well, let's get to the what we wanted to discuss about their growing successor. So now you're engineering manager, you already have your skills or your muscles, you know how to talk with people, you know how to handle all their hard situations. And as you mentioned, you're growing to team leads. I'm not sure, I don't know whether they will be EMs or will they pursue their technical track. When you're looking at the person and deciding to talk to a person to grow in their EM track, how would you describe their EM role in a couple of sentences to this new person that you are kind of trying to propose to grow to EM?
So, yeah, I would say that probably an engineering manager is a supporting role, first and foremost. So, the main responsibility will be developing the team and removing distractions and blockers. So, that will be the first focus. And then later on, the person will also start to represent the team to stakeholders and also set expectations with them around deliverables. So, yeah, I think that pretty much covers it as an initial thought.
So it's not no power, no kind of growing, but it's kind of stepping aside and kind of helping the team to go ahead instead of ruling the team.
Yeah, one of the first things that I learned when I was basically getting promoted to an engineering manager, I had an interview with our VP essentially, and it was a pretty short conversation. He was like, "Why do you want to become a manager?" and things like that. And after I told him my reasons, he also said that, "Look, I think that you would be able to do the job, but you also have to remember that like every manager at Red Hat is a servant leader. So it's not that you are like in the position of power here. You are here to actually like go and support the people." That's something that really like stuck to me, and that's something that I'm trying to implement every day.
Yeah, that's another reference we should put for the listeners to read and take care about. And when you're looking at the people and saying, okay, well, you, John, a random name, right? I want to talk to you about becoming an EM because why do you choose those people? How do they struck into your eyes? Why you select them?
Good question. So with the people that I chose, I think the thing that stood out the most was the fact that they were already like in their roles, collaborating and bringing people together. So like they were not focusing as much on, here's how I'm going to do it, but they were spending time to like mentor others. They were spending time on these let's say extracurricular things maybe that were not necessarily part of the software engineering role, such as collecting requirements, understanding like different points of view of why these people want this thing implemented and such. And yeah, I think that's the main thing that stood out with them. And also the fact that I have career conversations pretty regularly with my people, and I already knew that these people were interested in like in the long-term perspective progressing to the managerial track.
Got it, guys. So it's not about getting the best engineer in the team to be a team lead or a manager, but rather those people who are showing their willingness to grow in that direction.
Yeah, I think so. Like it's probably I don't really think that there are people that I don't think that being a manager is something that you're born with. Like nobody is born with like manager like on their title, but yeah, that's just a set of skills and behaviors that you can learn. It's just that basically like there would be some people that would be happier like doing that job than others. So yeah, that's something that you have to account for. So I don't think that, basically, luckily at Red Hat there are ways to, grow your compensation, your title, and like grow professionally outside of just becoming like changing your track from individual contributor to manager. And while you like some responsibilities will probably be shared between two tracks as you progress in your career, there's still some things that are different. So for example, like people like distinguished engineers might have a team that they are leading from the technical perspective, but like they will not be responsible for those people in terms of people management.
No, and there, do you still kind of leave, the engineering and management pendulum, saying that, well, during your career, you might go either on the management side or the engineering side, and this is kind of pendulum. So you work sometime more on management with people, with platform, as I said, and sometimes you come back to more engineering, like architecting things or programming, coding things, and this happened to. I think it was in Terraform, Terraflow. Their CTO was kind of going from the CTO role to back to just engineering role instead of driving the company. Said like, well, look, guys, I want to code, and it was a little bit awkward for the team because basically the guy who was leading them was put in their merge requests and they had to approve them. But do you leave this space for your successor, kind of explaining that it's possible to go back if they don't like, or you are confident in them progressing in their management track?
I mean, honestly, I overall consider the team lead position sort of like basically like I consider team lead position a way to try leadership and like try kind of like engineering and like people management in a safer environment where you have less risks. So definitely it's all an experiment in a sense. And like if people end up not liking it, I'm happy to support them in transitioning back to like an IC role, like individual contributor role, and basically, yeah, just like supporting them in that.
How do you help to develop skills of your successor? So what do you do? Do you kind of explain them, or do you just throw them like, look, there's a situation, go try resolve it, and I'm here to help you, just standing by your back and holding you? What is your approach to this?
So
developing the skills essential for EMs?
Yeah, good question. So I think it depends on situation in a sense. So like there were some things that we kind of like handed off immediately. So for example, basically when after after the initial preparation and like saying like defining the teams, etc. Basically after the announcement went out that we now have team leads and now we have the structure, the first thing that we did is I asked the team leads to like set up the one-to-ones. I also shared with them the resources, actually like this same book that I have told about becoming an effective engineering manager. So I asked them to read through the chapters about one-to-ones and just see, basically try to have a few one-to-ones with their people. So that was the thing that they were kind of like doing on their own, and we were talking about how things are going so far. So how are things in terms of establishing trust with these people? How are things in terms of basically resolving issues, things like that. There are some things that we didn't that we are doing together that are not completely like taking over because of partially because of organizational structure and how like basically company policies, but also partially because of because like maybe like they're still like growing to learn, they're still learning these things. So that would be, for example, performance conversations. So a part that I've let them handle on their own, setting goals with the people. But when it comes to, for example, like doing these quarterly performance reviews, that's something where we have basically a three-way conversation. So it's going to be my skip level, the team lead of this person, and me. Yeah.
Nice. And you were referring to successors within your team. I'm just wondering, as during your mentorship, or mentoring other people, did you have a possibility to to help person to grow through EM roles from mentoring this person? Because this is a very different experience, because within your team you can support this person and you can talk freely about tasks, about people, and their go through situations, and those people, their context. And when you're mentoring someone, of course the person will share with you the context, but it's kind of through their lens of that person that you're trying to perceive and help that person to grow as EM. What would be then different?
Yeah, so I have not had an experience managing or basically mentoring someone who ended up transitioning into an engineering role. I had a mentee once who was basically trying to decide like where she wants to grow next. So basically her options were engineering leadership. She was also thinking about maybe becoming an architect or becoming a product manager. And obviously by her we were limited by the opportunities that were available in her team and at her company overall. And also she honestly like just didn't know at the time like what she would what would be interesting to her overall. So
All right.
yeah, I suggested to her that she has a few conversations with people in these different roles. So she basically she interviewed several people that were in the roles that she was interested in, and got to understand that okay, maybe like engineering leadership is not a role for her, like is not a path for her at the time, and she actually ended up choosing the product management in the end.
Oh, okay. But still in the management or track.
Yeah, well, sort of, but I think product management is not the same, as engineering management, because you're like, as a product manager, you're not responsible for people, but you're more responsible for the product itself.
True. What is your biggest challenge so far? So you have two people growing within your team, and what has been the biggest challenge, kind of?
So I think at this point, the biggest challenge was probably like delegating things sometimes. So basically, like not stepping in and just saying, hey, this is how you're supposed to like handle this situation, but like being suggesting, but like not proposing, not giving the solutions to things. And yeah, honestly, like I think my team leads are doing pretty great so far. But yeah, just like basically giving them time sometimes to figure things out. Maybe like was a challenge, because
Okay,
I want
so
to like
basically,
I have this desire from time to time to just like jump in and like fix things, and like
let's
not.
do Here I am. I'm about to help. Oh, no,
Yeah,
no, no, no,
exactly,
no. Just
exactly.
try it
Yeah,
out yourself.
yeah. That's correct. That's correct.
Are you happy with the progress so far that you, as an engineering manager, are making for growing your successors?
I think I'm pretty happy with the successors. I think that like if I were ever to like change teams or change companies, I think that they would do great, and like they are already respected and acknowledged as leaders like in the department. And I think that's on the team as well. And I think that's the most important thing. I think they have the skills to basically go to the next level at some point and like handle not just, like their few people, but like handle a larger team. I try to bring them in pretty much like everywhere where, well, not everywhere where I am, but I try to bring them in all of the higher level conversations, so they would have visibility into what's going on, not just on like our small 20 people team scale, but also basically like on the like interdepartment scales as well, because sometimes we collaborate with other departments, so they would have the idea of what's going on. So yeah, I think on that regard, I'm pretty happy. I think one thing that is sometimes kind of unclear to me, and that's something that is, I'm not sure if it's my department or if it's the whole of the company, is overall like how do you progress in the engineering track. So at this point, like creating those team leads, like it was basically like my initiative, and like that was something that I figured out that I would like to do, and that seems like a next logical step. But at some point, after that, like what happens next? I think that those people would be great leaders, and I don't know, to be honest. That's I think that I think is the challenge, that once I can say that, okay, you are ready to be promoted to a manager, there's not necessarily always going to be a role like within the team. So
An
I
open
will have to,
position for that person.
there's not necessarily going to be a position open like in my department in particular, or even at the company. And that's something that I'm kind of like mentally bracing myself for, and I'm saying, like, please don't happen like within a year or something. But yeah, that's the challenge, I think. Like basically figuring out how to grow, like where they would go next, like after they are team leads, like where do they go, and how can I prepare them for that, and how I can prepare myself for my next step as well.
No, because when I was growing my successors, I was coming to them with the idea that look, guys, I want to make sure that the team and the whole structure that we have here continues working independently of me. So I might go to a side role, I might go up, I might go to a different company, and therefore I would like to work with you to make sure that you are growing as well, and you and make sure that by this communication with the successors, I kind of go through the rules and goes through the whole processes that we have to see and also verify them that they were working, that they were correct, and I think I told the story on one of their episodes that one of their results for me was when the whole team that was under me, it was like 40 people with their, I think it was around 8 different team leads. And one of the meetings with their team leads all together said like, Alex, look, we don't need you here. Why did you come? I said like, okay, well, it was a joke, but for me, it wasn't a joke. It was a positive feedback, right? Mm-hmm. So that the whole team has been working without me. And I said like, okay, it means that I can kind of get my hands off and the team continues to work, communicate with other departments, communicate internally, communicate with the customer. And then I was getting myself prepared for a next challenge, right? So actually what happened when I left that company, one of the persons stepped up into my role, and basically the whole team remained stable, right? So they didn't have to hire external person, and then I could go to a different company, to a different role, and it was a happy moment that I left something that has been stable, visible after me, and we still have a very good contact with those guys, with that team. Actually, some time ago, a part of the team sent me a photo from their team event saying like, Alex, we are all here together, everything worked as it was. Well, of course there were some changes that happens during life, and there are changes with the customer and so on and so forth. New people are coming, but kind of their message was like, look, they're kind of the successor that you grew. It's here and it's working as it has been designed.
Yeah.
Then that's a kind of a very good success indicator for me, and I'm really happy to get that message.
Definitely, yeah, makes sense.
So that might help you as a goal for growing your successors. Kind of, okay, well, what do you do next? And when you said like there is no role, as I might imagine, as you were growing those people and you are responsible for them, right? You're taking responsibility. You might step to a different track inside the company that you might be interested in, you don't know yet.
Yeah.
But what I said, like to keep the same philosophy of letting the team work, and if you have already a successor, give them space.
Exactly.
That's what I tried to do, and it worked for me. I hope it works for you. Well, this or another strategy or whatever is there in your opportunities within your company. We touched a little bit about this, about your mentoring and mentoring people, and this is very connected with their growing successor. Why did you start mentoring?
That's a good question. I think I really enjoyed mentoring the people on my team initially when I was, basically when people were joining and like getting them onboarded. So I thought that it's also a good way, I realized that like through that mentoring, I also learned a lot myself. And I thought, why should I limit myself to mentoring just the people on my team within just the technologies of my project when I can also, start like helping people outside maybe, and
Hmm.
also like learn something, like pick up a skill or two for myself.
So, what are the topics that you're mentoring about, like leadership, technical things, or?
So far it has been mostly technical things. So and I would like to also like mentor future managers, or basically like potential like, or maybe current managers, but I don't think I'm at that point yet. So currently I have mentored a few people that were trying to that were breaking into the tech career overall. So basically like coming from a separate, completely like different background. And I have also mentored people that are basically like currently like software engineers, and they're looking to get promoted to like the next level, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Well, good luck with your future engineering managers, mentees. That would be nice to hear from you whether how it worked out, because basically they're bringing your story from successor to a whole different level as you're going
Mhm.
outside the company. Is there anything that you would like to share about successors, or that you're working with and that you are growing inside their company?
Not sure I fully understand the question, to be honest.
Is there anything that you would like to touch upon to discuss about growing successors?
I think, yeah, I wanted to mention that honestly, like when I started like growing them, I realized that I don't really remember how things were when I was transitioning to an engineering manager. And I think I imagine that's probably like an experience for many people as well. And yeah, it has been very interesting that like also like it's basically it's also another shift basically like from my role as like, how is it called, the basically like the first line manager to like being now the second line manager, or I'm not sure, like middle manager. So
Hmm.
yeah, so now that I'm working on that, it's not just basically how we're going to deliver, but like it's more of what we are going to deliver and why overall, and if we should. In terms
Hmm.
of the successors themselves, I would say that the skills that I have been focusing on the most with them were, again, I think like they were both like pretty good mentors like already, but basically making sure that they are able to like give timely feedback to people has been very important, and that they are not shy to deliver constructive feedback when that is necessary.
Hmm. Hmm.
That doesn't happen often, but like basically I believe that giving timely feedback and like providing a person with a knowledge that like something can be better is like very important. So that's something that we focused on a lot. I think that's probably all I would like to mention. Any additional
No,
questions?
no, I'm just was wondering. So it's a very similar experience to what you had when you become their engineering manager, and now that you are sharing with your successors with the feedback, as you mentioned earlier, and this is indicator as it is a very important and key skill for working with people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that you make sure that you talk with your words through the mouse, or you will put it in words in Slack channel or whatever you are using
Mm-hmm.
for communicating and making sure you send the message to the person, explain what's going on, what could be better, what are well, it's also about a positive thing, right? What has been done in a great way, and they're supporting people and making sure the whole team and the whole behavior of every individual is shaped
Mm-hmm.
together as one team. Yeah, coming from a group, because when a person joins, it's just a group of people, then going to a team. So this is something that goes kind of a red line through the whole story as we talk, and there
Yeah.
kind of continues along. That's a very nice thing. You mentioned it a little bit about, but as a final question, I would like to ask you: do you miss your engineering past?
Yes and no. I think it's nice to, I think it's important for me to kind of like continue. to keep understanding, like what the people are working on. I don't necessarily miss the fact, like I don't necessarily miss, like spending several hours like to find out that in the end I made a typo somewhere or something like that. But yeah, I think I still enjoy the maybe like architectural part of the role, and like understanding what the people are working on from that perspective. And I think the fact that I keep mentoring people kind of like helps me stay in touch with that technical side. So yeah, so I at this point I don't think I necessarily miss being an individual contributor, but I definitely appreciate the value and like the experience that I've had with that.
Nice. So, well, good luck with your successors and your future career as EM. And thanks for this conversation. And if people want to reach out to you, how do they find you?
So they can find me on Twitter. So it's at Bluebird with 4 R's. Because
we'll put it in the description your link to
yeah.
Twitter.
Yeah. So they can reach out to me there, or they can reach out through LinkedIn as well.
And should we mention your mentor, your link to the platform where you're mentoring?
Sure, we can. I'll send it over to you as well.
Yeah, great. So thank you very much for this conversation. It was a great pleasure to talk to you or go through the red hat. It's not a red hat, I think, but it's a hat. And it's interesting to understand how you grow your future colleagues and your future managers, your successors. So good luck with that. Dear listeners, if you like their show, and if you don't like, go and like it, subscribe it, put the comments below. I'll ask Anna to answer some of them. Hope you will.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Thanks. And thanks for being here. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.